Good evening. My name is Amber Church, and I'm very honored to be on the traditional territory of the Kwanlin and the Tongkwetchin with such an inspiring group of speakers. When I got asked to deliver this talk, it was last fall, and we were in the heat of a couple election campaigns. Everyone in this room went through the Yukon one first, and as someone whose voting priorities are climate change and the Peel watershed and our relationships with First Nations, I came into that feeling a certain amount of cautious optimism. The next day, we went through the American election, and I was a little worried the apocalypse had actually happened. The good news is that in the intervening period, although what we've seen from our southern neighbors in the echelons of power has been some of the most devastating policy that we've seen in a long time, what we've seen from the grassroots has been absolutely empowering. Be it citizens who are phoning their elected officials every single day, clogging the phone lines to discuss their views on whichever bill is being discussed that day, to the Women's March, and to, we know, the upcoming science and climate change marches that are planned in the coming months, to the response to the absolutely horrendous Muslim ban, and to things like developers creating apps that are playing the stock market based on what Trump says on Twitter and giving the funds to Planned Parenthood. Makes me happy. And I think we as polite Canadians could actually learn quite a bit from what's going on in the South right now, and start thinking about democracy as a verb, as something that we should be doing every day, not just something that once every 4 years we tick a box on a piece of paper and let's see how that turns out 4 years from now, which, let's face it, some of us do. We have this incredible right as Canadians to actually vote and to participate in our democracy, and we owe it to the country and to ourselves and to the world that we actually use that right. I've been very lucky in my life to have some pretty cool opportunities to act on that right, be it working at the United Nations on climate change and getting the opportunity to help draft the language that preserves the rights for the public to participate in that process, be we talking Indigenous communities or youth or scientists or innovators of the business community or you in this room, or be it giving my working hours to non-government organizations, be that CPAWS in the Peel watershed here, or Special Olympics, or the Canadian Youth Climate Coalition. I've had some really wonderful chances to put my democracy and working for my democracy to use. But those are just tiny ways. One was my way of doing it. There's a million other things that everyone here can be doing. And it's as simple as finding out what's happening. How many people in the room actually know what's being discussed at City Council or in the Band Council? There we go, talk to the mayor. What's happening? Thank you, Dan. Find him in the reception, he'll tell you. In the legislature or in the House of Commons, there's actually a number of politicians in the room who could probably answer that for you at the reception tonight. Find out what's happening and make sure that your views are known. I had a really interesting conversation with a former premier of a southern province one day, and he said to me his party had lost power. And he said, you know, our supporters really let us down, and I thought this was going to turn into a sob story about not getting out the vote, and et cetera, et cetera. And instead, what he said was they didn't hold our feet to the fire. Democracy is, well, everyone throws the Churchill quote out that it's the worst form of government except everything else we've already tried. It's a compromise, and we all know that. And if you elect a party and then don't push them, somebody else is pushing the other way, and that compromise is going to move. So yes, you do have to write letters and you do have to make phone calls. And I know it's not very glamorous, but it does make a difference. I promise the politicians in the room really do love to hear from you. And we're in a small enough place that you can actually talk to them in the grocery lineup as well if you want. If you have the financial means and the time, there are a plethora of organizations that would love your help and your funds to keep doing the work they're doing and pick your issue. There's an organization for every single one of them out there. If you are not hamstrung by nonpartisanship, which people like me who work in a charitable sector are, but if you don't find yourself in that situation, I would certainly encourage you to join a political party whose views align with your own, or for that matter, join several if there's a few that align with you. We know there's a divide there, and some of the politicians in the room may not thank me for saying that, but it's a chance to help shape the policy before it ever hits the floor of the House. And if you are feeling particularly brave or maybe a slightly sacrificial lamb, depending on your perspective on it, you could always run. Because we do need people who care desperately about our democracy to be stepping forward and taking part in an active role. I guess I would just like to conclude by saying we have this incredible, incredible right that so many in the world do not. We should be championing it and celebrating it, and we should be acting on it every single day. Thank you.